Hello, Internet, ladies, gentlemen, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Creative Differences Podcast. I'm Dallas, and I didn't think of anything to say. Colin,
Good
tell the people
start.
who you
Good
are.
start. Great
I know,
start.
right?
I'm Colin, and that's probably as much as I'll be saying this entire time.
That's fair. And I'm Demi, and I really don't have anything to go with this except to say that Gabby
God
could not join us for this episode. She had to go to work, which, hey, that's a thing that we have
She
to do as
can't hang
adults.
around here all night. She's got a life.
That's true. So it's just going to be me and Dallas telling you guys about 5 movies that each of us have watched over this quarantine period. Welcome to Quarantine Watch Part 3 of the movie section. Dallas, you want to just jump into round 1?
Yes, I do still have a hint for this one.
Let's do it.
Oh ho.
Ho ho. Probably part of the reason Huey Freeman did not like Vivica Fox in the early 2000s.
That could be like
I don't know who
so
those
many
people
movies.
are, so miss me with that.
That could be
Okay.
so many movies.
For those who don't know, Huey Freeman is the protagonist of The Boondocks. Vivica Fox is a prominent black actress who made a lot of movies in, like the last 30 years. I don't know. Anyway, it's Two Can Play That Game.
The thought crossed my mind.
Of course it did.
I couldn't remember the name of that movie though. But the thought did cross my mind, and I'm pretty sure he mentions it in the comics quite a bit.
He does. There's like a section. Also, I've been reading the Boondocks comics lately. So,
And they're fantastic.
They're amazing. And a lot of what I say and do is influenced by that. That's not why I watched this movie. It was a completely unrelated incident. Two Can Play That Game is directed and written by Mark Brown, who wrote Barbershop and How to Be a Player. So
I like Barbershop.
I also like Barbershop. I have not seen How to Be a Player, and I don't like Two Can Play That Game. We'll get into that.
I think I own all 3 of those. I think they are all in my house somewhere.
I am not surprised. It stars Vivica Fox, Morris Chestnut, Anthony Anderson, Gabrielle Union, Wendy Raquel Robinson, and a bunch of other people who were in a bunch of black movies in the early 2000s. So you guys know I look up the summaries on IMDb, and this one was like aggressive for some
I'm
reason.
scared.
I'm just going to read it. It says, an arrogant career woman plays a series of heartless mind games with her boyfriend to, quote, put him in line, only to discover that he has a few tricks up his own sleeve.
That is really aggressive.
Yeah, I'm not sure why we're calling her arrogant and heartless. Like, I get it. Like, the whole premise of the movie is kind of these people manipulating each other, which sucks. But it's just, it's less neutral than I'd expect for an IMDb summary. I don't know who wrote it. It's very strange. Also, a fun fact that I can't like super confirm the details of, but apparently at some point years ago when I was a kid, a movie was trying to use our family's house to film, but somebody involved with this movie was working on that movie, and they got offended when they heard my mom talking about how she didn't like this movie. Yes, I was like cross-referencing different movies, and it might have been Gabrielle Union and Deliver Us from Eva, but I'm not certain. So that's just something. That's like the one thing I always knew about this movie growing up. Was that my mom didn't like it, and our house wasn't in a movie because of that.
Well,
Yeah, But yeah, I get why she didn't like it, because I also couldn't get into it because it's just a movie that not only is just about people manipulating each other, but like it's framed in this way that Vivica's character talks to the camera and just gives tips on how to manipulate people. And of course, it's like it can't be 100% bad. So at the end, they have to realize the error of their ways and all that stuff. But like, I did not enjoy watching that for the time that I did. And I don't have an issue with like characters who are just bad people. If your thing is funny, I watch a lot of stuff where the characters are bad people. Always Sunny, Mythic Quest, Archer, Arrested Development. This just wasn't that funny.
The Boys.
The Boys, yes. Yeah, like this one just wasn't as funny to me. And, maybe it just doesn't resonate. It's like, I think 2002, 2001, something like that.
Yeah, it's early 2000s.
Yeah, it's not the kind of like,
It probably hasn't aged well.
yeah, I was 9 when the movie came out. It's kind of dated. It's not really for me. I will say Anthony Anderson was hilarious. I'll give him that. He was great. And I really like the cast of this movie. I like everybody that I named earlier.
I was like, oh, I know all these people.
Exactly. I like them better in other things. I recommend this movie if you are a black person in like your 40s or 50s. You've probably seen it, honestly. If you're a black
our
person.
audience.
Yes. My aunts and uncles, if you're listening. I know for a fact you've all seen this movie already, so I don't need to recommend it. Moving on.
All right. So the first movie that I'm going to mention is the one that I've watched most recently, and then we'll rewind. So the first movie on my list is Enola Holmes, directed by Harry Bradbeer, starring Millie Bobby Brown, Henry Cavill, Sam Claflin, Helena Bonham Carter, and Louis Partridge. Or Louis
Hey, I've
Partridge.
seen that
I actually
one.
don't know. Hey, it's on Netflix. Brand new for those of you guys who haven't seen it. What it's about: when Enola Holmes, Sherlock's teen sister, discovers her mother missing, she sets off to find her, becoming a super sleuth in her own right as she outwits her famous brother and unravels a dangerous conspiracy around a mysterious young lord. This movie was a delight. It's very charming. Very much enjoyed myself the entire time I was watching it. Just a really good, fun time. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of like Sherlock adaptations, but I've watched a lot of them throughout my life. Before I even got to the end of the movie, I was like, I would watch a series of these films. I would watch spin-offs of these films, which, hey, we might be getting with Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes. And I will say this, he is my favorite Sherlock Holmes because he's not as much of a douchebag as all the other Sherlock Holmes. He's
Nice.
still kind of a douchebag, but not as much as one. He's a very likable guy in this movie. It's so nice to see Millie Bobby Brown in a role that isn't 11, which I felt the same way about Godzilla King of Monsters. It's just that I feel like she doesn't do enough in that movie to really feel that. With this movie, you know, she's the lead character. You're following her on her story, and she's just so charming and likable. She breaks the fourth wall a lot in a very Deadpool manner, and I've come to find that with fourth wall breaking, you can only do that in films if the actor who's breaking the fourth wall is very charming and likable.
That's fair.
If they're not, you're gonna lose it. And I think she does a really good job with breaking the fourth wall in this movie. I was talking about in the last podcast the ABC murders with mysteries. I like being able to, you know, figure out the clues if I can. And I felt like this movie kind of did that. I felt like as she was going through it, I was like, oh, yeah, I see how she figured it out. The character is a particularly smart character. I think we've discussed occasionally, I don't know if it's been on the podcast or outside the podcast, how we sometimes really just don't like dumb characters. So it's really nice to see really smart characters figuring things out. And that kind of happens with her and also occasionally with Sherlock as well. So yeah, I would highly recommend it. Very charming, very fun for the family. The third act gets kind of dark, literally and figuratively,
That's
but
fun.
it's really good. I really enjoyed myself, and hopefully there will be a sequel. Is already rumor that there will be a spinoff for Henry Cavill's Sherlock, which good for him. I really like Henry Cavill. Enola Holmes on Netflix. Check it out if you haven't already, and if this is your type of movie. Dallas, round 2.
Round 2. This is a movie that I always assumed was about a mobster because of the title and the star of the movie. Turns out it's not. I feel like you're not gonna guess it from that.
Is that the one with Tom Hardy?
Oh no, we're going to the 90s with this one.
Oh, okay. I was like,
yes,
what?
This is My Cousin Vinny. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't. It's a comedy, isn't it?
It is. It's a comedy about a lawyer. I thought it was about a mobster because it's Joe Pesci and it's called My Cousin Vinny. But yeah, Joe Pesci plays a lawyer. It's directed by Jonathan Lynn, who apparently directed The Fighting Temptations.
Hey.
Which, like, man, dude has range because...
Those are very different.
Yeah, he directed Clue. This man has lots of range because if there's two movies that I don't think are at all close to each other, it's My Cousin Vinny and The Fighting Temptations. It was also written by Dale Launer, who I don't know what he's done because Wikipedia did not tell me.
Well,
oh, wait. Nope, bunch of stuff I haven't seen. Moving on. It stars Joe Pesci, Ralph Macchio, yes, the Karate Kid,
hey,
Marissa Tomei, Fred Gwynn, Mitchell Whitfield. So I didn't know anything about this movie, but one day I was sitting in the living room with the fam, and Kayla's sister was like, My Cousin Vinny, you see My Cousin Vinny? I was like, no. And she's like, oh, it's a good one. You'll like it. So we watched it. And yeah, it's a good one. I liked it. It's very funny. Like a lot of movies that are older like this, sometimes they just, you know, like the movie I literally just talked about. Like if it's older, like if I was a kid when the movie came out and it wasn't for kids, sometimes it's just not my kind of humor. This one's really funny. Marissa Tomei is great. Joe Pesci's great. It's nice to see him and not just expect him to shoot people in the face whenever he shows up on screen. It's like he's the lawyer. So like he's still aggressive because he's Joe Pesci and I don't think he can be any other way. But let me give you guys a summary if you like what the hell is he talking about. Two New Yorkers, Karate Kid and the other guy, are accused of murder in rural Alabama while on their way back to college. So they call in the help of one of their cousins, a loudmouth lawyer with no trial experience. So Vinny is Karate Kid's cousin, and he's basically never worked a case before. And it's
This
just,
sounds interesting.
it's very interesting. And it's just a lot of shenanigans and mishaps. And of course, Marissa Tomei is like Vinny's girlfriend, who he doesn't listen to because he's a lawyer, and she's like the quote unquote eye candy because it's a 90s movie. But of course, she knows more than him about just about everything. Also, people always talk about this movie when they talk about how hot Marissa Tomei is.
Okay.
And I get it. I definitely get
Okay.
it. Like, yeah. But it wasn't like I needed to see this movie to know that. Like, obviously, I've seen her before. I got eyes. But yeah, I was like, I see. I see how that became a thing.
Aunt May was hot in her prime.
Always. But there's a scene because they're in the South, and there's a scene where they're at this diner and they don't know what grits are because they're like a couple Italians from New York. And
Yeah, grits are like a southern type of thing.
Yeah, they're like a southern black thing. And I was just thinking about, I was picturing a scenario where someone on set has to teach Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei what grits are.
Oh my god.
And like, maybe they knew that already, but it's really funny to me if they didn't.
I
Because
hope they knew that already.
I think I've had to teach someone what grits are.
Really?
Yeah. I just assume that's something that all black people have to do at some point. Is
I don't
tell a
think
white
I
person
ever
what grits are.
have. No.
I've done it with a lot of foods. Gumbo, jambalaya. But we're getting off topic.
Gumbo I do often.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got family in New Orleans. That's like your responsibility. But yeah, My Cousin Vinny. It's funny. It's funny if you think about the premise, like a movie about being wrongly accused of murder in Alabama. It sounds like a horror movie.
Or a
If I made
thriller.
that movie-
Or, you know.
Yeah, if I made that movie, it would 100% be a horror movie because that sounds absolutely terrifying. Alabama just sounds scary by itself.
It sounds like Taika Waititi took the idea and then made something.
Yes, so shout out to Mr. Fighting Temptations, Jonathan Lynn, because this is a funny movie. And shout out to Marissa Tomei. I see what everybody's been talking about. Your turn.
It is my turn. All right, we're gonna take it back to like July, back when I was going through my Arthurian legend phase, and I watched King Arthur, directed by Antoine Fuqua, starring Clive Owen, Keira Knightley, Ewan Griffin, Stephen Dillon, with Mads Mikkelsen, Joel Edgerton, Hugh Dancy, Ray Winstone, Ray Stevenson, and Stellan Skarsgård as the Knights of the Round Table, or at least the future Knights of the Round Table.
Joel Edgerton is in that movie?
He is.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I didn't know it was directed by Antoine Fuqua until I watched it.
I found that out because I was looking for. Never mind. It'll spoil things for a fan cast that we may do later down. Moving on.
All right. In 400 AD, the Roman Empire extends to Britain, and the Romans become impressed with the fight skills of the warrior Sarmatian people, which are spread but have to send their sons to serve Rome in the cavalry for 15 years. Only after these services, these knights are free to return home. King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table have their last mission before achieving their freedom. So it's a very like realistic take on King Arthur. Like it's very historically based, as you can tell from that synopsis.
Yes, it sounds like you're reading about a history book.
Yeah, like if I told you about King Arthur, like that's not what I would tell you about King Arthur. It takes from a very specific point in history and very much tries to ground King Arthur and Arthurian legend into history, which, you know, I personally missed the fantasy element because that's typically what I'm here for when I'm watching anything related to King Arthur. I'm here for like the, you know, Excalibur's a magical sword, guys. Like,
right. Yeah.
I'm there for that stuff. But like it's an interesting take, and it could be interesting to those who are more fascinated by a more historical take on the story than a fantastical one. But it's definitely not my favorite take on the story. But it's got some really great performances, but I did find it a bit boring. But I have been wanting to watch this movie since 2004 when it first came out because Keira Knightley was in it and Ewan Griffin was in it. And at that point, I was a huge fan of Keira Knightley because Pirates of the Caribbean had just come out.
Makes sense.
I was like, yeah, I want to see her play Guinevere with a bow and arrow. Sounds awesome. Which, I mean, it was whenever she got to shoot the bow and arrow. She doesn't show up until like 30, 40 minutes into the movie. If you're interested in that sort of take on King Arthur, I'm not. But if you are, you should check out Antoine Fuqua's 2004 King Arthur.
I think I played a GameCube video game based on that movie.
Based on that movie that has a video game?
That's a weird thing. Like, it was around that time, and it was a King Arthur game, and I want to say Clive Owen was on the picture.
That movie is definitely not like an action movie. Well, I mean, it's got action, but like
I think they
I
just
wouldn't call it
figured
an action movie.
King Arthur can be a video game. Who's King Arthur right now? Clive Owen, put him on it. But
I mean, it could be a video game, but not that version.
yeah, I hadn't watched the movie, so I was like, King. All right, I like swords.
Yeah. I also like swords. That would not be the version of King Arthur I would want to play, though. I want the magical sword. I want the King Arthur Legend of the Sword.
Oh, that would be a super dope video game.
That video game would be fire.
I would love that.
That would be dope. But yeah, that's the second thing on my list. What you got next, Dallas?
All right, round 3? Round 3. Yes.
We are on round 3.
Hint.
This is going so much faster than the TV show one.
I love it. Hint that maybe you'll get, I don't know, is that this is probably my favorite romantic comedy, even though I didn't think I had a favorite.
Brown Sugar?
You are so right. It is Brown Sugar.
Oh
my God, I love this movie. I forgot how much
It's
I
a
love
great
this movie.
movie.
It's so freaking good. And
I grew up on that movie.
it's so good. Brown Sugar is written and directed by Rick Famuyiwa.
Who keeps popping up in these podcasts.
Yeah, because he's freaking dope. And he made Dope. And he made The Wood. And he
makes Star Wars stuff.
Of The Mandalorian, right?
He did. He directed a couple of episodes of The Mandalorian and is writing an episode from season 2 and directing a couple, I'm assuming.
Yeah. He's I think I used him as my director for When Lamont Met Boquisha.
You did.
Yes. But yeah, he's
Which
great.
is our most recent fan cast.
It is. Go watch that, guys. Or listen to that, guys. And he is the key to making a rom-com that I won't hate. Because not really my genre. But this
Are
movie
you sure
is,
he's the key?
I mean, yes? Question mark?
I want to find Hitch. You don't like Hitch?
No, like I don't mean he's the only person. I just mean like
Oh, okay.
he's my favorite.
I was like,
but yeah, Hitch
man.
is great. Hitch is great. No doubt about that. Anyway, summary time. Friends since childhood, a magazine editor and a hip-hop record executive stumble into romantic territory. Sounds pretty basic because, romantic comedies. But it stars Taye Diggs, Sanaa Lathan, Mos Def, Nicole Ari Parker, Boris Kodjoe, Queen Latifah, and a whole bunch of rappers like making cameo appearances.
Taye Diggs and Sanaa reuniting after The Best Man.
Yes. I'm probably going to end up talking about that movie at some point in this series because I think I watched that too. I was going through this
forward to it.
Yeah, like 2000s black movies thing that Kayla and I were doing. But this is definitely the best of them for me. I love this movie. And the cast is hilarious. Mos Def is like the friend for Taye Diggs, and Queen Latifah is the friend for Sanaa Lathan, and both of them are so funny to me. Like, you have to have the, comedic friend for the romantic comedy.
Absolutely.
And they did it so well. Like, Mos Def is 100% my favorite part of this movie, and he's so much funnier than I realized. Like, I knew he was. Full disclosure, I'm rewatching this movie for the first time since like I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
So I liked it before, but a lot of it wasn't like, it's just, I like hip hop. I like black people. Romance is cool. But now it's
to be honest, I probably should rewatch that movie as an adult.
Oh, yeah. If you haven't seen it since you were younger, you should definitely rewatch it. It's great. Like, Mos Def oh yeah, we had to rent it for like a few bucks on Amazon Prime Video, but it's worth it. This movie's great. Mos Def uses Casablanca as an analogy for Taye Diggs, basically going out like a punk in regards to Sanaa Lathan at a certain part of the movie.
Oh my gosh.
And he was like, yeah, you like Humphrey Bogart, man, just walking off in the distance with another dude. Like, you let your lady leave. He's like, you're not going to be walking off in the distance with me. I don't know what you're talking about. And it's so funny. Like, the interaction between Taye Diggs and Mos Def is so great. Like, from the point where they meet each other to like how their friendship grows. And there's, to me, do you remember the scene when Taye and Sanaa are out and they see his wife at dinner?
Vaguely.
Okay.
I haven't watched this movie since probably high school because we used to like vote. I don't know why we used to bring that movie to vote on for days where you could watch like any movie you wanted to, but we used to.
That's interesting.
I remember bringing it to class so often.
That's dope. I wish I was in that class. But yeah. Okay, I won't spoil that for you. But it's a hilarious scene. And it's like cinematic gold. And nobody can convince me otherwise.
Yeah, no, I should rewatch it. We own it on DVD. The only concern I would have is that it's probably scratched to hell by this point.
I imagine it would be.
because it's been watched so often.
As it should be. It's great. But also, I think part of the reason I love it so much is because I've always loved hip hop so much. And this movie has the main characters have this love for hip hop that translates into the narrative of the movie because, they work at a record label and a hip hop magazine. So you get that part of the movie as well. And it's kind of like a parallel for their own love. It's super sweet and super hippity hoppity. I love it. It's just black excellence, and I recommend it to. I don't know how to like get the demographic that I want to recommend it to. Yes, I would recommend it to. Moving on. I recommend it to you listening. Watch Brown Sugar. Also, I didn't realize how attracted I was to Sanaa Lathan.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
Things you learn every day.
things you learn. Things you learn.
I feel it. All right. She's attractive. She's very
She is.
beautiful.
Super pretty. And I guess I didn't notice because I was 10 when this movie came out. And then next time I saw her was like Alien versus Predator or something random. Where I'm just like,
Oh,
kill the aliens. So I wasn't really thinking about it.
fair.
But yeah, that's Brown Sugar.
All right, continuing on my Arthurian legend kick, the next movie that I watched, I think immediately after King Arthur, was The Sword and the Stone, directed by Wolfgang Reitherman, Clyde Dronamy, and David Hand, starring Ricky Sorensen, Sebastian Cabot, Carl Swinson, Junius Matthews, and Norman Alden. A poor boy named Arthur learns the power of love, kindness, knowledge, and bravery with the help of a wizard called Merlin in the path to become one of the most beloved kings in English history.
You were really on that thing. You were on that kick.
So you know why I was watching all of this?
Why?
It was because we decided to fan cast Arthurian Legend.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I was watching every adaptation of Arthurian Legend that I could that wasn't Merlin, because I've already watched that all the way through, but just stuff that I had not seen before. So I had never seen King Arthur, and I didn't remember Sword in the Stone really well because I had watched it maybe once as a child, and I had just finished watching Cursed. And then I think I was also watching Camelot at the same time. So I just went through a whole
You're doing it.
Arthurian. I went through an Arthurian week where I just watched King Arthur stuff. And then the King Arthur one didn't get voted for. There was that moment
right.
where we thought it was going to win and it didn't. But I watched all of it, and now my fan cast for that is done for whenever we finally do it. But this is the Disney adaptation of the King Arthur story. It is definitely not Disney's most memorable film, nor its best.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of average. But it's a very cute interpretation of King Arthur's origins. And it's definitely got some really interesting moments, some really cute life lessons that Merlin gives to Arthur. There's some really creative adaptation choices, and there's possibly a furry scene.
Of course.
A what?
Where's Gabby when we need her?
Yeah, there's a scene where Merlin has turned him and Arthur into squirrels, and he's teaching Arthur a lesson about
Wait, is this the animated one?
Yes.
Oh, I just completely thought it was a different movie, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
yeah.
and the girl
I
squirrel.
would not call that a furry scene because they're actual animals.
Okay. Is that the difference?
I mean,
because remember, Kovu is also an actual animal.
Okay, so
here we go.
I don't want to go into this because that will reveal too many things about things.
Go into it, Colin.
No,
Get up in
let's
it.
just say Kovu as he is in the movie. No, that's just bestiality. There's a line. Anyway.
All right then. Well, yeah. So The Sword and the Stone, it's on Disney Plus for anybody looking to watch some old Disney classics that you probably haven't watched in a really, really long time. That was one of the ones for me. I hadn't watched it since I was a child. It was one of the ones that I did not own as a kid, which is why I've only seen it once in my life. So I just wanted to check it out again, especially since I was doing Arthurian research and just trying to see how different people have adapted different parts of the story. So in this one, Sir Kay is kind of a douchebag to Arthur throughout the entirety of the movie. And Sir Ector kind of just lets him be a douchebag, which kind of sucks. I will not have that in my version of King Arthur. So, The Sword and the Stone. Round four. Dallas, you want to kick us off again?
Yes, round 4. I'm not going to do a hint for this one because it's there are too many things that it could be. I'm just going to say Batman Hush. This is my number 4.
Okay.
Yes. Because I was gonna say something about Batman, but there are like 1,000 animated Batman movies, and we'd be here all day trying to figure out which one I was talking about.
No, he wouldn't, because I'd have been like, you know what? Just tell us.
That's true. Yeah, there would have been no point. It's directed by Justin Copeland and written by Ernie Outsbacker, and it stars Jason O'Mara, Jennifer Morrison, Jeffrey Arend, Jerry O'Connell, Maury Sterling, and then a bunch of other voice actors, including Rainn Wilson from The Office as Lex Luthor, which I thought was an odd choice.
Interesting. But did he do a good job?
He did a pretty good. It was like Lex Luthor is not a huge part of this movie. He did what he could with what he had. And then Vanessa Williams plays Amanda Waller, and that was pretty cool.
Oh, nice.
So, summary. When threads from Batman's past begin to unravel, the race is on for him to crack Hush's deadly game. Strange alliances will form and shattering secrets will be revealed when Hush's silence is finally broken. I don't know why I decided to go into the drama halfway through that. But
Felt a very, very pulpy description.
yeah, it's a dramatic movie. It's a storyline that I have not read. And a lot of times with like DC animated movies, I'll watch it having not read the storyline, which is a gift and a curse. Because on one hand, I'm not constantly complaining about all the differences that they made. But then you hear people,
True.
Yeah, you hear like, you see the reviews and people are like, why did they change this? Why did they change that? And sometimes there's merit because it's like, they change things that they don't even need to change. But
Like the Killing Joke.
Anyway, yeah, this one was good. Most of the DC animated movies for me are like, they range from good to great. I like this one. It has some interesting like Batman Catwoman exploration.
Ooh, I always love that.
Yeah, I do think they spend a little too much time on it because these movies are all like 80 minutes. So it's like this storyline is too in depth for you to one, have the movie be the short, and then two, spend much of that short runtime dealing with like the Batman Catwoman stuff. Like there's a lot going on right now, Bruce. Can you deal with your relationship later?
Of course not. Not when Catwoman is involved.
That's fair.
His work is his pleasure. His pleasure is his work.
Don't know how I feel about that.
I mean, look at the women that he's interested in. Talia, Catwoman.
Talia freaking raped him.
I heard that was a retcon.
Well, it's funny you say that because they reference it in this movie.
Oh my gosh.
Because, oh man, to me, I wish you watched more of these movies because like I want to talk about them with you. Like they have this whole Bruce and Damian thing going through the movies. Also, Talia's played by Morena Baccarin in these movies, which is great.
Hey, Morena.
Yeah. And at this point, like Damian is his son and his Robin, and they have this like relationship where they discuss things with each other. And Damian is talking about Catwoman, and Damian doesn't really know how to talk to or about people.
Yep, sounds like my Damian.
Yeah, so he's like, if this trollop brings you some kind of carnal pleasure, then I guess that's fine. But he said, I don't need to remind you about your choice in women, least of all my mother. Batman is like, did you say trollop? Like your slang needs work. And he's going to hang up on him. Before he hangs up, Damian is like, and cover your drink. Because
Oh my gosh.
that is how Damian got here in the first place. So yeah, that is canon, at least in these movies. Talia is a bad person. But back to this movie. It was interesting because I had been watching Harley Quinn, the show, for weeks.
Yeah.
So like going from that version of all these characters back to like the serious, gritty version of all these characters was a transition. Especially because Clayface is in it, and Clayface is as ridiculous as possible in the Harley Quinn show. But then I watched this and I'm like, oh yeah, Clayface is freaking terrifying. Yeah, and they changed like, never mind, that's a spoiler. It's not important. What is important is it's a dope movie, interesting storyline that they're basing it on, which makes the movie, inherently interesting. I'm really into all of like the Bat family stuff, so I'm glad that they're keeping that going. It was also fun to see the Catwoman relationship, but it's just bigger things are happening. You have a lot of villains to worry about right now. Maybe deal with Selena later. But yeah, good movie. A nice little 80 minutes, like most of the DC animated movies. I recommend it if you are into DC animated movies.
Dope. I'm going very out of my wheelhouse with this next movie on my list. It is Netflix's The Last Summer, directed by William Bindley, starring KJ Apa, Maya Mitchell, Wolfgang Novogratz, Jacob Lattimore, Halston Sage, Tyler Posey, Sosie Bacon, Mario Revolori, and Jacob McCarthy.
It's a lot of people.
It is a lot. Well, it's an ensemble movie.
Ah.
Standing on the precipice of adulthood, a group of friends navigate new relationships while re-examining others during their final summer before college. So yeah, it's a fun little coming of age film. There's nothing really groundbreaking about it. I really enjoyed the way that they shot it though. I really like the look of it. It's a really enjoyable, view at the transition, that summer, transition between high school and college. Like, what decisions do you make before you go to college? What things do you leave behind? What things do you take with you along this journey into adulthood? I've enjoyed basically most of the cast in other things before I saw this movie. So it's, nice to watch them in another project that isn't the thing that I've seen them in before. Was very surprised to see Gage Golightly in a role unlike anything I've seen her in before. I love Gage Golightly ever since I saw her on, I think Ringer was the first thing I saw her on. And then she was on Teen Wolf for a little bit. I feel like there's like a couple of storylines that could have been cut to give other storylines some more development. Not because they're bad, although there is one storyline in particular that I find kind of questionable.
Interesting.
Two of the guys in the movie, after graduating high school, start hanging out at this bar and pretending to be stockbrokers and basically they start dating these older women in order to lose their virginity before they go off to college.
That sounds
Wow.
kind of gross.
Yeah, I was like, this
odd.
entire storyline is very, very like uncomfortable.
Wait, they're like just lying to the women, saying like, "Oh,
Yes.
we're stockbrokers, sleep with us,"
Yes. Basically, yes. Yes.
and that works.
Yeah.
That's all right.
I was like, I'm not cool with this particular storyline, so y'all could have gotten rid of this.
That's interesting.
It's a little weird.
After we record, because Kayla and I were having a conversation about Barney from How I Met Your Mother, and it's reminding me of that. So, gonna bring that back after we're done here.
Yeah, but also there is one storyline that I really loved the beginning of, which is the storyline between Jacob Lattimore's character and Halston Sage's character, because their characters have been dating basically throughout high school. And when you meet the two characters, they both get a phone alert reminding them to break up with their significant other. And so they go to like this big party that's being thrown by somebody else who graduated, and they go and they have this conversation, and you find out that they have together like agreed that they are going to break up after high school. And so they're having a conversation as to, well, maybe we shouldn't wait until the summer's over. Maybe we should just end it now.
Interesting.
I was like, this is really interesting for like two teenagers to be like it almost feels responsible, like they're trying to be responsible adults by being like, we're going to go our separate ways. So let's end it now instead of trying to, spare each other's feelings. And then it's them kind of establishing what are the boundaries of this breakup. Do we still talk to each other? Are we still friends? Can we text one another? Can we hang out this summer? Like it's really interesting. And then obviously the rest of the movie kind of follows each of their journey apart from one another. And how they differ and how they feel about each other as they evolve through this journey. So that was like one of the storylines I actually really enjoyed. KJ Apa and Maya Mitchell's storyline is pretty interesting as well. Tyler Posey plays a professional baseball player who meets Halston Sage at a baseball game and starts dating her. It's a bunch of really interesting kind of storylines to follow. So it's just, it's a fun movie. Very interesting take on being a teenager in that time period. So it's really cool. It's really interesting. Check out The Last Summer on Netflix if you're like even somewhat remotely into coming of age movies or into rom-coms or anything like that. So, round 5. Dallas has muted himself, so we cannot go on to round 5.
Dang it. I thought I unclicked it before I said what I said. We have made it to the beginning of the end, people.
Oh,
because I remembered to take the mute button off my microphone. Anyway, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm.
Hey.
Yes. This movie popped up on Netflix in July, and I immediately watched it the day it came out because it's so freaking dope. If you know me or anything about me, probably, then you know that I love the Batman animated series from the 90s. And
yes.
This is pretty much a long episode of the Batman the Animated Series from the 90s because it stars Kevin Conroy as Batman, Mark Hamill as the Joker. Interestingly enough, it has Dana Delaney as Andrea Beaumont, which is like a one-off character. But she goes on to voice Lois Lane in the Superman show, which was interesting because we were watching the Superman show before we watched this movie. I was like, hey, that's Lois Lane. But this came out before that. She has a very recognizable voice as well. And let me get my Batman summary voice. Batman is wrongly implicated in a series of murders of mob bosses, actually done by a new vigilante assassin. And that's the Phantasm.
Nice.
The Phantasm, thank you. The Phantasm is this super, super dope looking character that we just never get to see again, which is super upsetting because the character design is like the most 90s superhero cartoon thing you can possibly think. Like every Halloween costume I wanted to wear when I was a kid,
Okay.
just picked like that's the Phantasm. It's just so dope and like spooky. And I love it so much. And it's such a great character. And we never get to see them very much after this. And I've never understood why.
You got to start a campaign to make them bring back Phantasm.
Right? Honestly, I'm surprised there isn't one. I mean, there probably is one. There's campaigns for everything on the internet. I try to avoid that stuff. But Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill are obviously always a win. This is like one of those. It's one of the things that people point to when they talk about Mark Hamill being like the definitive Joker.
Yeah.
Because he does a Joker laugh at the end of this movie that is just like, all right, everybody, just look at Mark Hamill and what he's doing right now. Like that's
Or just, pack it up and go home. Pick
like
one.
that's the Joker. Yeah, like Mark Hamill is that dude. He's amazing. And Kevin Conroy is amazing as Batman. And this storyline is interesting because it reminded me a lot of The Dark Knight. The story he has with Rachel, where it's like, can you be without Batman? If you don't need Batman, we can be together, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the story is told in flashbacks. And we get to see Bruce Wayne happy, like which we never do. Because
oh my gosh, Bruce Wayne?
Right? Because we meet this woman, Andrea, and she's like the love of his life. And he's happy with her. And he's like happy to the point where I think he's like, forget Batman. I'm going to just be with Andrea and be a happy rich man, which I should be because look how freaking rich I am. And it reminded me a lot of Rachel because in that story, he was like, I can't stop being Batman. I'm Christian Bale and I have a gruff voice. And then, she blows up. But fortunately, Andrea does not blow up. Spoilers, I guess. And it was just really nice to see that side of Bruce because it's always so dark and depressing. Of course, he ends up still being Batman, so we still get the dark and depressing. But it's a nice change of pace.
Because he's Batman.
Because he's Batman. If you like the Batman animated series, watch this because it's just that, but longer, but not that much longer because, like I said, all these movies are like 80 minutes. And it was I think other than The Killing Joke, which we don't talk about very much, it's the only one to be released in theaters. Yes, the only animated Batman film to be given a theatrical release. It didn't do very well because I think they decided to release it like very short notice.
I would say they probably didn't have marketing for it or something.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know it was a theatrical release until like recently. I was like, oh, this came out in theaters, but
well, it's like they were working on it, and it was gonna be not in theaters, and everybody was fine. But
right.
The creators had wanted it in theaters, and then finally they were like, "All right, fine, we'll release it in theaters, but we're gonna do it in a few months." And they were like, shit, we gotta make this work."
Yes, apparently it condensed this production into a strenuous 8-month schedule. I mean, the movie's still dope, so shout out to the team who made it.
That's what matters here.
Yeah, the movie's dope. It's I guess you could call it a cult classic because it didn't do well, but now everybody loves it. And I was 1 when it came out, so I didn't get to see it anyway. But yes, it's on Netflix. So go on Netflix and watch it.
Dope. All right. So my final movie on this list, we're getting hella pro-black right now.
Oh, fun.
Because it is Black is King on Disney+.
Oh, yeah, I guess Beyonce that counts as a movie.
Yes, directed by Beyonce and technically directed by a lot of other directors, but Beyonce is the overall director. So if you want to look up all the other directors, you guys can go do that. There's like 10 of them. But yeah, it's a visual album from Beyonce inspired by The Lion King, a clever, in my opinion, it's a very clever live action reimagining of The Lion King using the music from The Lion King, The Gift album that Beyonce made when the CGI, quote unquote, live action.
See, that's interesting because when I saw it, my thought was, this is great, but the Lion King stuff I felt like held it back.
The music held it back?
No, like the
No, the story is The Lion King.
yeah, I think I didn't get that like at all. So it was just like the music is dope, the visuals are dope, and then every once in a while they'll use lines from the movie, and it's like, why are you here? This doesn't need to be here.
But the visuals themselves are still. She is literally just telling the story of The Lion King, just in a human form.
Yeah, I guess that just didn't come across to me, and it was fine, and I liked it regardless.
Yeah, no, it's this is the true live action version of The Lion King. But it's also a lot more metaphorical, and because there isn't dialogue, it is based mostly in the music. That's the way that the story is told. And I think that Beyonce actually does a very good job of it. It is visually stunning, so beautifully made, incredible imagery and cinematography. Like from the moment that it starts, I was automatically just like tuned in to like the imagery and just the visuals that she was showing. It's so thematically resonant. The first time I watched it with a friend. I just watched it recently again, actually. But the first time I watched it with a friend, and we had a really good conversation afterwards about like the meaning of the end of the film and what Beyonce was going for with that. And I always love a film that, film or television that allows me to get into a deep dive conversation like that. It's a lot of fun for me. But yeah, I mean the whole thing is it's kind of the quality that you expect from Beyonce. Like Beyonce has a reputation of putting out great work, excellent work. And I would not call myself a Beyonce fan because the Beehive kind of scares me, but but I do like Beyonce's work, and I think that this particular piece is absolutely stunning and incredible, and it's what you expect out of her. It's the quality that you expect. It's nice to see something that is so explicitly pro-black in its messaging, especially from a company like Disney. It's really dope, and it reminded me of how good the music was on the Gift album, because I had forgotten, because I hadn't listened to it since like the live action movie came out, and like I was like, oh yeah, this album was dope.
I like that album a lot.
I was like, this album was great, and I like completely forgot. Like, there's so many great songs on this album, and I had to go buy some of them after I finished watching it again recently because I was like, oh yeah, I really like this song. But yeah, Black is King, super good. If you like The Lion King, I would highly recommend watching it.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like Dallas. I would like for you to see it just because I want to see if you see the Lion King aspects of it, not just the quotes that they're saying, but like legitimately like the story that she's telling throughout the through line of the story.
I see the Lion King in everything, so I probably will.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's okay. Sure. Black is King. It's amazing, and you guys should check it out because it's awesome. And that's the end of it. That's all we've got. That's all 5 rounds of us telling you what movies that we've been watching. We are nowhere near done with doing quarantine watches because the quarantine kind of still continues. I don't know what's going out there in the world, but it kind of still continues, and we're still watching stuff. So
Yes, because we should be nowhere near done with quarantining because we are nowhere near done with COVID, despite what people want to act like. Anyway, yes, we're still quarantining. We're still wearing masks. We're still washing our hands. We're still avoiding strangers and each other sometimes. I am rambling. Thank you, audience. Thank you for listening to us talk about movies, which is what we do here. Thank you, Brandon and Io over at Crown Digital for putting us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to me, as always, for editing and for pushing through this with me through all of our stupid technical difficulties, which were all my fault.
we had some tech difficulties. You guys will never know exactly what they were. You will not experience them, but we did, and it was frightening.
All you need to know is that Colin was going on an in-depth discussion of furries, and we missed all of it because of
That's not true.
technical difficulties.
I was not doing that. I specifically said in our chat that I would not do that while we were recording because I don't want to, say some things.
And he did not say those things.
Demi, thank you. Thank you for, doing this with me in Gabby's absence. Colin, thank you for the in-depth discussion of furries.
And hanging out with us. And having an opinion on Black is King. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it like the day it came out because I knew it was going to be beautiful, and it was.
It was. The colors, man. The colors.
If you guys want to talk to us about King Arthur, Batman, Black people, whatever, you can find us on the medias. Twitter, we're at y'all_different. Instagram and Tumblr, we're at Creative Differences Podcast. And Facebook, just search for Creative Differences. You can find me personally at A King Named Simba, which, you know, it fits. Lion King. Black is king. I'm black. A King Named Simba on Twitter and Instagram.
You can find me on Twitter at Duck McGuck.
And you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Dreamy Films. Dreamy is spelled DREEMI. Thanks again for joining us.
And
I was hoping this would happen.
Yeah, there we go.
you can find Gabby on Twitter at Ooh Kovu. That's Ooh 5 O's, 1 H. Kovu.
Oh, that's a good one.
Thank you.
Oh, it's perfect. We've been waiting. The opportunity arose and
It
you
did.
took it.
I had to take that alley-oop.
It's been different.
Bye.